Hello, my name is Cole Rasmussen. I am doing my final presentation for interpersonal communications, uh, Communications 121. Try to make sure I stay within time. My name is Cole Rasmussen. This is my final project on the movie Wall-E that came out in 2008 and produced by Disney and Pixar Animation. I will just quickly say that Wall-E has long time been one of my favorite shows based on the fact that for a couple of reasons it has absolutely minimal dialogue, but the message that is shared back and forth and exchanged both within the audience, both in the characters themselves, is so well done and so well expressed that it shows truly the beauty of nonverbal communications. So let's jump right into this, since I've already done this a couple times and been too long. So, our main characters specifically are Wally, who is a waste collecting robot with a personality. You have Eve, a futuristic, sleek probe robot who is sent back to Earth with a specific mission. Also have Captain McCrae, who is the captain of the spaceship Axiom. And we have Otto, who is the AI main computer that controls the Axiom battleship or the Axiom spaceship. A brief synopsis of the movie is that in the future, where Earth is abandoned due to all the waste population, Wally is the last functioning robot cleaning the planet. He comes interact with Eve, who is a probe sent back to Earth to find signs of life, and ends up following her, building a relationship with this robot, feeling connected to her, and then following her back into space, where they discover humans have become reliant on technology and losing their interpersonal skills. So I'm not going to play the whole clip because then that would really make this presentation very long. But very briefly, you're going to see that we have Wally. He befriends Eve. He brings her back to his little hut and then starts to show her all the different things that he has since then found and felt like have been meaningful to him, and he wants to share them with Eve. And Eve, and how we're looking to see how she interacts with these gifts, with his responds to his interaction or his movements and things. And it's a really beautiful kind of little exchange. But of course, for this purpose, we're going to just kind of continue to move on. Wally is a curious and affectionate towards Eve. Despite her mission focused and mechanical demeanor, Wally tries to connect using gestures, gifts, and mimicry. These are definitely the types of interaction we see here is developing early stage of interpersonal communication. At this point, Wally is trying significantly much more harder than Eve. Eve is more standoffish. She doesn't feel the need for the connection the same way that Wally craves it. And that is very easily expressed or felt as you are the audience member observing this message. So, nonverbal messaging. Wally uses eye contact, gesture, and a proximity, how close he gets to her and trying to reach out to touch her to express his emotions. We have self-perception, the way that Wally and Eve, as they start to befriend each other, are aware of the awkwardness that one or the other presents to the other person, and it's so funny. Interpersonal communications, this is the beginning of a relationship developing, marked by uncertainty, reduction behaviors. So some of the things that I'd always say that are kind of different here, but it drives the mission, is the fact that Eve has a much more standoffish approach because she doesn't crave the attention the same way that Wally misses it. So, but if there was a sooner connection that Wally or Eve was more open to it, I think it would have really interacted. Their relationship in this experience could have been much more communicated back and forth. And our second scene I want to talk about is when the Captain McCrae becomes aware of plant life and is trying to then correct himself, correct the past of his previous predecessors, and then get mankind back to Earth. But it comes into a direct point of conflict. The expression that happens over Captain McCrae as he then starts to realize just what exactly
There you go,
humanity
little
has been
guy.
missing out on
You came a long way for a drink
is a
of water.
really huge,
Just need someone to
significant
look after you,
turnaround.
that's all.
And here he kind of gets it. And he sees just what exactly he can do. So Captain McCree is inspired by Wally and discovers the plant life, and he decides, and it brings into a direct conflict with Otto, the need to get humanity back to Earth to be able to then clean up the certain messes and that there's hope for humanity back again on Earth. So here we have interpersonal conflict. Captain McCree engages in a power struggle with Otto, the ship's AI asserting his authority to protect the greater good of mankind and return them to Earth. There's a lot of listening and interpersonal communication. The captain then learns that there was a secret mission that was never communicated to him, that he did not know, that there was never a plan to actually go back to Earth. And as all this time has passed, that there is hope for humanity. So this also brings back to some of the fundamentals of communication, and also being able to ask the right questions, but also then what is driving the relationship between principles of ethics, courage, and taking responsibility. You know, again, too, if here a previous captain or Captain McCrae had been able to ask the appropriate questions, he would have known the understanding earlier, and maybe could have not spent 700 years in space, but have been closer to the 5-year plan originally designed for the Axiom ship. So Wally is a creative. It creatively demonstrates how interpersonal communication shapes relationships and decision making. Specifically, a movie that is so heavy on nonverbal communication, which really truly makes up, I think our book says, 55 to 60% of all communication. So, but it talks everything, this movie, in relations to chapters within our books on nonverbal messaging, perceptions, listening, conflict, and relationships are clearly affected within the films, or clearly reflected in the film's interaction. Effective communication eventually leads to trust, change, connection, and even in unlikely scenarios, which I love. Here you have an animated film that is so emotionally driven with a message of coming to terms with everything. I want to make sure to point out my references and the what I was able to use for this movie. I hope this was a good opportunity for you to see what I've been able to learn and pick up from our class this semester, and enjoy this presentation. Have a good day.